Good evening. Good evening. I don't think it's on yet. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Jane Frudenberger. I'm the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Bellingham, Whatcom. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we start, I want to remind you to please turn off your cell phones. The voter forms are presented by the League of Women Voters of Bellingham, Whatcom County, and the City of Bellingham. The city has provided the facilities, and the form is being telecast live by BTV 10, and the forms will be repeated on BTV 10, the city's YouTube channel, and you may listen to them on low-powered radio stations KMRE and KAVZ. The Bellingham Herald is our media partner. We want to thank all these parties for their generous support, and I hope that when you see people from these organizations, you'll thank them too. These forms are the property of the League of Women Voters and of Bellingham, Whatcom County, and the City of Bellingham, and may not be used in any manner without specific written permission from both parties. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization founded in 1920. It has 800 affiliates across the country. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties, and only takes positions on issues after careful study. The League encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Membership is open to men and women of all ages, and we invite you all to join us. Tonight, in the series of 3 forums that are going to be produced by the League for our general election, we will be covering the candidates running for Bellingham School Board, the Bellingham Port Commission, and then we will address the jail, sales, and use tax measure. For information about our upcoming forums, please see the calendar on our website at www.lwvbellinghamwhatcom.org. And now I'm happy to introduce our first moderator for the evening, Annette Holcomb.
Thank you, Jane, and I'm glad to see all of you here tonight. We're starting with the Bellingham School Board Director, Position 2. And we have our candidates up here in front, Jono Manion and Quenby Peterson, who are running for the position. There are 3 additional candidates running for the Bellingham School Board, and they are Camille Diaz-Hackler for Position 1, Kelly Bashaw for Position 3, and Douglas Benjamin for Position 5. And they are all running unopposed. 5 community members make up the Bellingham Public Schools Board of Directors. We elect board members for a term of 4 years. It is an unpaid position. The school board has governance responsibilities in these 4 main areas: vision, accountability, structure, and advocacy. Before we begin, I will explain the rules for our forum tonight. The candidates will have 1.5 minutes for an opening statement and 1 minute each to rebut their opponent's opening statement. After the rebuttals, they will respond to questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their response, and they will each give a closing statement at the end of the question period. Riley Abel and Melissa Bishop, our League members, will be tracking the time, and they will flash a yellow sign. Can you show us that, please? When there are 15 seconds left, and a red sign to signal stop talking. If the candidate continues, a bell will ring. That's the bell, and that means stop talking right now. We ask that the candidates honor our established time limits. The League aims to promote civil discussion of the issues. To that end, we request that those of you in the audience be respectful and refrain from comments or clapping during the question and answer period. Please hold your applause until the conclusion of the segment of the forum after each candidate has given their closing statements, and then we will clap. Some questions have been provided by the Bellingham Herald reporters and the League's question committee. We encourage members of the audience to send us your written questions. Remember, your questions should address both candidates. Rather, both candidates will respond to your question. And the ushers are available to pick up your questions and bring them up to our screeners who are sitting here in front. If you need extra cards for a second question, just raise your hand. Ushers, would you please make yourself known so the audience will see where you are? Yeah, thank you. The questions will be screened by Joe Collins, Martha Burns, and Donna Packer tonight, and they will be screening for legibility, clarity, and to avoid duplication of the questions. So to start off, our candidates rolled the dice, and the high roller had a choice of whether to go first or last with their opening statement. And after we start, I will rotate the questions back and forth, giving them a turn as to when they go first or second. So candidates, please remember that your opening statement should answer the question, why are you running for Bellingham School Board, and what makes you the better candidate? The winner of the dice roll was candidate Peterson. And her choice was to give the second opening statement. So that means candidate Manion, we will start with you. Your 1.5-minute opening statement, please.
Hi, I'm Jono Manion. I'm running for school board. I've lived in Bellingham for around 15 years. I went to Western to be a high school math teacher. While I was at Western, I had a lot of great opportunities to work with teachers in the area, especially in the high school area. Although I did end up picking a different career path, that knowledge stuck with me, and that desire to want to help our students reach the best of their abilities always stuck with me. Recently finding that the school board position was open, I thought it would be a good idea to throw my hat in and see what happens. And I think that's why I'd be a good candidate. I have a lot of experience to be a strong advocate for teachers and students in the area.
Candidate Peterson.
Hi, my name is Quenby Peterson. I'm running for Bellingham School Director position 2. I'm a parent of 2 current Bellingham School District students. I've been active in our schools for many years, supporting the PTA, working in classrooms, and just helping out wherever I felt it was needed. I'm involved at the district level in the Parents Advisory Committee to the superintendent and a group called Parents Matter. That's a group of concerned parents, school district employees, and community members working to bring together community organizations to connect and engage families and students with the schools. I moved to Bellingham 25 years ago to attend Western. I graduated with degrees in political science and sociology. My work experience is in governmental accounting and budgeting and financial and statistical analysis. I bring a analytical approach to almost everything I do. I'm running for Bellingham School Board because I value excellent and engaged education for our students. I will strive to ensure equity of access for all. I believe the duty of our public schools is to prepare children to be successful in life, no matter what their background or where their life takes them. I believe every student should graduate from high school and, in doing so, prepare for their next step in life, whether that be college, career, and technical training, or the workforce. Children need to be engaged, valued, and appreciated in order to succeed. I will support our district in ensuring we create this type of atmosphere for all of our schools, for all of our children.
Thank you. Candidate Manion, your rebuttal.
Well, it sounds like Quenby has fantastic experience with the school board and with the school district. In my mind, I feel like if you choose either of us, you're making a smart choice for our school board. One thing that I feel is that I bring a little bit of diversity as someone who doesn't currently have children within the school district. I'm looking out more for the 10,000 students who are there in our school system, plus any who will be there in the future. This is a long-term goal, and we should be looking with a 10, 20, or 30-year goal in mind, as opposed to maybe looking out for what's going on immediately.
Candidate Peterson.
I can appreciate my opponent's perspective. I think there's quite a bit of diversity on the board currently, and currently only one sitting board member has a child in the district. I think it's important to bring the perspective of what happens in our schools every day. And I can say that since my kids have been in schools, I've probably at least been on school grounds more days than not that they've been there. I'm not engaged only with my children, but with students throughout the district and parents and families and staff members throughout the district. I'm not here for a short-term, just get my kids through and out. For me, it's what's in the best interest of all of our kids.
Okay, thank you. So Candidate Peterson, I'm going to give the first question, and you will go first with that one, with your response. Question is, as of today, the legislature has not acted on a school funding plan that satisfies the state Supreme Court's order to fully fund education in Washington. If you could speak to our lawmakers, what would you ask them to do to best serve the needs of the Bellingham students?
Fully fund education. The paramount duty of our state is to fully fund education for all of our children. And I think that's what needs to happen. It needs to not be put on the back of local jurisdictions to equalize the playing field. It needs to be statewide, funded by the state.
Thank you. Candidate Manion, your response?
I would request them to stay in session as long as they could to actually fund education. This is the paramount importance to our state. If we don't fully fund education now, that's going to have detrimental effects for years into the future, and we need to get this taken care of immediately.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Manion, the next question, and I'd like your response first. How do you define what constitutes a quality education for Bellingham students?
I think anything that encourages students and nurtures their curiosity, allows them to fully develop as critical thinkers and lifelong learners is a good sign of a strong education. I feel like they should have access to a wide variety of subject matter, including arts. Not every student will want to study math or sciences, and having that outlet can also help reinforce other areas that they might be studying.
Okay, I'm sorry. Have you answered that question?
No, I'll
Okay,
go ahead.
thank you very much.
For quality
Easily
education,
distracted here.
I believe for quality what defines a quality education is challenging a student to think and to think beyond their immediate world, to an education that prepares them for wherever they may go in their future, whether it's college, so that when they get to college, they're not taking remedial math classes in order to be able to go in the front door and keep up with their peers, whether it's for career and technical education as their next step, or to go straight into the workforce. An education that prepares them to be a responsible, engaged citizen with empathy for their peers and an understanding of the greater world around them.
Thank you. The next question, and Candidate Peterson, you'll respond first. What kind of discipline strategies do you support? And are you familiar with using restorative action?
Absolutely. Through the Parents Matter group, there's been a lot of discussion over the last several years about decreasing suspension rates in our schools, and currently Bellingham School District has been nominated for a Peacemaker or Peace Builder Award through the Dispute Resolution Center, and I think that Bellingham has made great strides in restorative justice and in keeping kids in school while if whatever they did harmed another student, the victim or the target is kept safe, and their protection is of the paramount interest as well, but where a child has an opportunity to make amends while maintaining contact with the school.
Thank you. Candidate Manion?
Disciplinary events are more often seen as teachable moments. These are opportunities to interact with the student to help them gain a greater understanding of their actions and how they have, how they can impact others and how they can impact themselves. I feel that a lot of things that, zero tolerance kind of actions, suspensions, that kind of stuff, does a greater disservice than actually working with the student to help them understand, what they did and maybe help them, like Quenby said, make amends for whoever they may have wronged. I think we need to do more to help educate our students to take care of one another as opposed to punish them for various things.
Okay, thank you. So candidate Manion, how can the district ensure that all high school graduates are prepared to succeed in post-secondary education or the workplace without needing remedial English or math skills? And do you think standardized testing helps to meet that goal?
I don't think standardized testing does much to help our students right now. Our educators are focused in on teaching our students to pass tests as opposed to master concepts. As a gauge of achievement and progress, that's an excellent thing, but at the same time, standardized tests have been distorted to be a way to, I guess, push not necessarily agenda, but push curricula that might not necessarily meet what our students need. We need more one-on-one interaction and assessment and not standardized testing kind of thing.
Thank you. Candidate Peterson, your response?
To help prepare our students for whatever comes after high school is we need to really engage them in high school so that we can increase our graduation rates with a goal of 100% graduation rather than 70 to 80% as it may be now. Engaging them in ways that make them want to be there, or whether that's extending the high school day to 7 periods rather than 6, so kids can actually find their passion by taking classes that they're interested in, or providing other flexible arrangements that they can take more online classes, they can do more work study opportunities. As far as the testing goes, I think there is a place for testing to quantify benchmarks and to ensure progress, but not everyone is a successful tester. And I don't think mandated standardized testing is a very good way of really measuring what's going on in our schools, and are we creating graduates who are prepared for college and their next step in life.
Thank you. Okay, so candidate Peterson, what do you see as the school's role in addressing issues that impact students' ability to learn, such as poverty and access to health care?
I think that the Bellingham School District has made great strides in addressing issues of equity, especially related to poverty. There are programs in place, primarily on the north side in Title I schools, where kids can get breakfast after the bell, so they get breakfast after they come to school. Alderwood has begun a program where everyone gets free lunch. It doesn't matter if they qualify through the federal programs, everyone gets lunch. And at Shuckson Middle School, they provide dinner 4 days a week for all families, free of charge to kids 18 and under. There's also great programs in place for homeless students and additional engagement opportunities for Title I schools. So I think we've made great strides, and that's something I will continue to support and also work to bring into not just the Title I schools. Sorry, I forgot the second part of your question, but I'm out of time too.
Access to health care was the other part. Candidate Manion?
Making sure that students aren't hungry is a vital thing. I remember a couple times when I was growing up where maybe I'd miss breakfast or whatever, and I really couldn't pay attention to what was going on in school. So I think making sure that we're able to ensure that all of our students are able to have balanced nutrition, whether it's through programs or whether it's through working with them to set up maybe classroom gardens. There's a lot of ways you can set up things to help make sure that they stay healthy, stay engaged, and stay within our system. With regards to poverty, I think we need to provide more access to computer classes or access to computer systems. Many students who are in poverty aren't able to get access to this kind of thing, so it puts them at a severe disadvantage, and I think the more that we can provide that kind of access, the better.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Manion, you'll speak first to this one. Please tell us your view about the best, most effective way the school board can support teachers and administrators in their responsibilities to students.
Well, I think we need to make sure that teachers are able to teach the concepts that they want to in the way that works best for their students. Oftentimes, curricula may be differing from what their group of students need. And if they don't have the flexibility to pivot and try different methods, then they're doing those students a disservice. With regards to administrators, they make sure that our schools are running smoothly and that funds are allocated properly within them. And have that freedom allows them to better understand what's going on. I really feel that having teachers have that freedom is a very, very important thing.
Thank you. Candidate Peterson?
I think for supporting our teachers and administrators that professional development is key. The education world, as pretty much anyone's world of employment today, is continually changing. Best practices are being refined. Standards are being varied, new curriculum is being brought in, and I think that to ensure that we give teachers the adequate resources that they need and the knowledge and the training to fulfill whatever expectations are put on them is crucial. The flexibility to teach to varying learning styles, absolutely, I think that takes place. I would say in pretty much every classroom every day right now, and so to continue to allow that and encourage that, I think is crucial. For administrators, I think clear communication as far as expectations is probably the most important thing, and just continuing to ensure that we have really high quality administrators and teachers.
Thank you. So, Candidate Peterson. The next question is, starting next year, a half credit in civics is required for high school graduation. Do you have ideas about how this can be implemented so that students can gain a greater understanding of government and their role in the election process?
I think the most crucial way to implement that is through real-life practical experience, requiring students to attend city council meetings, county council meetings, school board meetings, seeing government in action, meeting with legislators, meeting with their local representatives, and just getting that firsthand experience rather than reading about it from a textbook. I think that for some students, an online option might be better where they can study on their own and then incorporate hands-on activities and learning opportunities. The YMCA has a youth and government program, and I think that could be a resource that's tapped into as far as finding examples of what's currently in place to engage students with government and increase their understanding of the civic world around them.
Thank you. Candidate Manion?
Yeah, absolutely. Having students get a little bit more active in our local political movement and how everything goes here is very important. There are groups already that are starting to help, like the Whatcom County Young Democrats and the Whatcom County Young Republicans, that act as a good way to get students engaged. I think that's a great way to start. Maybe working with them to help find places for students to work. Maybe they could even do after-school internships with various council members or school board members just to see how things work from that side as well.
Thank you. So, Candidate Manion, what is your assessment of the current district programs to meet the needs of students with diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds and those for whom English is a second language? Do you have suggestions for additional programs?
I don't have any at the moment. I'll need to look into it a little bit more. One thing that I have thought is as important is the emphasis on bilingual teachers who speak both English and whatever the natural language is of their school area. Not every student is going to speak English as their first language, so if we can provide that support, it can help them in understanding concepts that might be a little bit more nuanced than their current understanding of English allows.
Okay.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. What is your assessment of the current district programs to meet the needs of students with diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds and those students for whom English is a second language? And do you have suggestions for additional programs?
So currently, over the last 5 years or so, the district has increased the budget significantly in the area of supporting English language learners. There's currently a high school language lab, if you call it, held, I believe, at Bellingham High School, where students from all the high schools can come and basically get immersion programs to really facilitate their increased knowledge of the English language, and in doing so, learn their other academic classes with strong support of a teacher who either speaks their primary language or has access to translators throughout the class day. I think that's one really strong program that's recently been implemented. Some of the other schools also have, I believe Alderwood has a bilingual principal, and there's also a community engagement specialist who's been hired by the district to really engage the families where English is not their primary language. And I think that's important to continue supporting that.
Thank you. Candidate Peterson, where do art, music, and sports fit into your priorities for allocating resources?
I believe art and music should be taught to every child every year throughout their education, from kindergarten through high school. I think when you get into high school and you have electives, it's especially hard to fit that in. I think that I've read a quote once that said, if you want your child to learn math, science, and English, send them outside to play. That basically that they need to be active in the world around them, and they can access that through athletics and the fine and performing arts. I would like to see that the money that is spent on sports is equal to the money that we spend on arts and music, not more than, not a great disparity between the two, but just I feel very strongly that arts, fine and performing arts, is an important part that every child should have access to.
Thank you. Candidate Manion.
I also believe that we need to do as much as we can to provide access to the arts for our students. I'm the son of a high school ceramics teacher, so I spent many years sitting there as almost kind of secondary daycare, learning how to throw pots, how to take photos, and a lot of things that I might not have had entirely good access at my high school, but I was able to do that. I'd love to see an opportunity where any student can choose to take those classes if they so desire. But at the same time, I do understand that our active sports programs are an excellent way for students to stand out, maybe find a way to gain some leadership skills, and then also it's a great route for scholarship programs when getting into secondary or college. And so I would like to make sure that we optimize, kind of all three, so that they can make sure that we maximize access to students.
Thank you. Okay, Candidate Manion. The next question is, in August, the State Board of Education lowered the score on senior proficiency tests required for high school graduation. It is now below the score that indicates a graduate is ready for college. And what is your view of this action? The action of the State Board of Education.
I think it's difficult to do that kind of gauge of assessment. Not every student is going to take standardized test 12 as a show of assessment. Some perform better in different methods, and we might not be gauging that properly. I think that does tie into looking at ways that we need to, reevaluate how we gauge student success. And I think this, we might have to do that this year, but we'll be able to do something better soon.
Candidate Peterson, your answer?
I think it's sad if that was put into place basically to attempt to increase graduation rates. and I haven't looked at that specifically. I have heard talk about basically lowering the bar for proficiency. I think that we do need to find ways to increase graduation rates, but also to ensure that our students are prepared for life after high school, whatever that may be. And I think by having a rigorous academic program available to all students through all grade levels, that my hope would be that Bellingham students would, be above that bar, and it would not be a factor here as far as students needing that bar lowered in order to graduate.
Okay, thank you. So Candidate Peterson, could you please explain the differences between charter schools and private schools?
Charter schools are funded with public money, and generally there's restrictions based on who's admitted, whether it's by lottery or by meeting certain criteria. Private schools generally are families pay in addition to their taxes. Charter schools do not have the same public oversight that general public schools do.
Thank you. Candidate Manion, do you have?
Yeah, charter schools they're outside of public scrutiny, but they use public funds, which seems like not the best idea. Oftentimes they're run by for-profit entities, so the money is now beholden to stakeholders as opposed to students, which seems to do our students a disservice. And since charter schools can choose which students go to them, they're able to inflate their test scores, which makes it look like they're more appealing than the schools that are now receiving less funds. With regards to private schools, like Quenby said, they're paid for either through endowment or they're paid for through just student tuition. They're more often than not nonprofit, so the money that goes into those schools is being focused directly on those students.
Thank you. Okay, Candidate Manion, the next question is, what do you think the district's role should be in relation to parents and students involved in homeschooling?
Well, I think they should be setting kind of goals, the same kind of goals that they have for students within the public school, so that students who are homeschooled have ideas on what metrics they need to hit if they are to be onboarded back into public school. I think acting as a liaison for homeschool educators so that they can work on different things and do some continuing developmental ed is also pretty vital. And yeah, that's about it.
I don't think the
Candidate
district should be required to have a role in that. However, I think the district has taken great strides in opening the Family Partnership Program, which is cited now at Larrabee School. And I think that great work is being done there as far as supporting families who do want that additional support and who are seeking maybe educational opportunities for their children that they don't feel that they can best provide for them, or that they want, a little bit of both. I think that the district can bring to those families a great resources as far as assisting in providing parents with understanding of grade level expectations for their children, in addition to resources of curriculum and providing classes that are available as their students' interests may fit.
Thank you. So Candidate Peterson, what do you see as the role of the school in addressing students' needs for health care, and in particular mental health care and counseling?
I think that we've got a big issue in our hands with especially our teenagers today, that there's a lot of anxiety and struggles that our kids are facing, and that if they have access to a mental health counselor at school during the school day, I think that's tremendous. Bellingham School District has recently partnered with CMAR to make that available, and I think that's fabulous. I think that school counselors are stretched thin, and for them to be able to have an additional mental health counselor available to them is a great support for kids. I think that can only support kids and families. I think that Bellingham's doing great work in that, and the the recognition of that will, I think, really help our community as a whole.
Candidate Manion?
I also think it's vital that we have mental health support services within our schools. Children are going through tremendous stress just from performing well in school, as well as the stresses that can happen when interacting with people that may not agree with them. There are issues, that may occur, such as bullying or just, outright harassment of students, and having somebody that a student can talk to who can maintain their privacy and maintain that support and provide them access to things that can help them better cope with, kind of just what it is that growing up is, I think is vital.
Thank you. This is the last question that we have for you, and Candidate Manion, I'd like you to answer first. What is the one thing you hope to accomplish in your first term, if elected?
I'd like to see us improve access to the arts for our students. One of the things that Candidate Peterson mentioned was extending the class day to be 7 periods to allow more time for electives. I think that's a very important thing, as long as it's coupled with providing access to art education, whether it's multimedia, whether it's choral or orchestra or band, just that outlet to help students kind of find a creative way to express themselves is very important to me.
Candidate Peterson?
One thing that's really important to me is to change the start time of high school to become later. Right now, high school kids start at 7:45 unless they take a 0-period class, then they start at 6:45. And most high school kids would really like to stay up till midnight, so that really doesn't give them a whole lot of sleep. That's one thing that I feel very passionately about. I also will work to increase on-time graduation rates, along with opportunities for students who don't graduate within 4 years of high school to have opportunities, to ensure that they do graduate within that following year. My biggest thing is to increase engagement, so families and students really feel engaged and connected in their schools and in their community.
Okay, thank you. So candidates, you now have an opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement. And Candidate Manion, we will start with you.
The school board and the school district is a really important thing. We're educating our students to become members of our community or whatever community they happen to live in. Having people who look out for them, who are advocates for the people who are educating them and taking care of them for 6 to 8 hours a day is important. And I hope that when you go to vote, you maybe think of me and vote for me. Thank you.
Your closing statement, Candidate Peterson.
I believe I bring the knowledge, background, and experience necessary to help lead our public schools in the path of increased excellence and engagement. I'm passionate about improving opportunities for all of our kids and have the experience volunteering with and supporting our teachers and students to reach those goals. I bring a breadth and depth of experience and understanding of issues facing our district and our community and all Bellingham families. My work will be focused on what is in the best interest of our children first, and how can we best support our teachers to meet the goals of the needs of all of our students. I'm endorsed by the Whatcom Democratic Party, the Whatcom Young Democrats, the 40th Legislative District Democrats, and the Whatcom Green Party. And I thank you for listening to me, as I will strive to listen to all of our Bellingham families. And I hope that you'll vote for me for the next Bellingham School Board Director, position 2. Thank you.
Okay, now you can clap. So please join me in thanking our candidates. Thank you very much for being here and for running for public office. Our next race is for the Port of Bellingham Commissioner District 3, so I would like those candidates to please come forward.
Figure that out. Thank you. Oh, great, thanks.
Maybe take this one back. These must be the hot seats, huh?
Yeah.
All right. The Board of Commissioners is a nonpartisan, three-person elected body that oversees all Port of Bellingham operations by providing policy direction and decisions in public meetings. Commissioners serve four-year terms. They each represent one of three districts in Whatcom County. The total compensation is derived from a salary plus per diem, which varies depending on the number of meetings required, but is no higher than $20,256 annually. So up here in front, we have candidates Gary Jensen and candidate Robert Bobby Briscoe. Welcome tonight.
Thank you.
The same ground rules will apply for this part as I had explained earlier. We will be starting with your 1.5-minute opening statements. Candidates, please remember that your opening statement should answer the question, why are you running for Port Commissioner, and what makes you the better candidate? Since candidate Jensen won the dice toss, he chose to open last. So we'll start with candidate Briscoe with your opening statement.
Good evening. I'm Bobby Briscoe. I was born and raised in South Bellingham. I'm the fourth generation of Whatcom County Briscoes. I'm running for the Port of Bellingham Commissioner's position because I would like to offer my marine experience and common sense approach to the people of Whatcom County. I believe the Port Commission would be more effective with waterfront issues by having a commissioner with everyday hands-on experience in the marine environment. The Port has major redevelopment underway on your waterfront. I'd like to help ensure it's done right the first time. I want to ensure the Port remains focused on its core responsibilities, which are promoting and enabling the marine industry and the transportation of goods in and out of Whatcom County. I also want to ensure the Port supports all of Whatcom County's businesses and promotes new business with long-term family wage jobs. I'm a commercial fisherman, not a politician. I believe I see the issues at hand differently. By that I mean I'm a hands-on working man. I have operated my own businesses for 42 years out of most of all the major ports from Kodiak, Alaska to San Pedro, California. Doing that has given me a lot of marine experience that you cannot gather by attending local port meetings. Information is important, but experience is essential. I can apply my experience so it will be beneficial to all of the port's operations in Whatcom County. I believe I can be an excellent port commissioner. Thank you.
Candidate Jensen, your opening statement.
Okay, thank you to the League of Women Voters and the City of Bellingham for allowing us here tonight. It's appreciated. I'm a lifelong resident of Whatcom County. I just celebrated my 35-year anniversary to my wife, Kelly. She's a kindergarten teacher in Ferndale. My background provides an ideal perspective for the Port of Bellingham Commissioner. As the owner of Sullivan Plumbing, I understand that business must provide excellent service and reasonable rates to retain and attract customers, just as the Port of Bellingham must do for all their tenants, and they have a lot of tenants. As Mayor of Ferndale the last 8 years, I realized that residents and business owners want their taxes spent wisely. They want governments to keep their taxes as low as possible. During my time as mayor of Ferndale, I've helped lead multi-million-dollar projects to build a new library, a new law and justice center, a new community center, 2 new parks, and we rebuilt our roads. With a track record of success in balancing business and government alternatives, I can offer my duties as a port commissioner. I'm going to be here 12 months out of the year. I'm going to attend all the meetings, all the staff meetings, all the committee meetings. I'm a full-time mayor. I'll be a full-time port commissioner. I'm available to the public at all times. I've learned to answer phone calls about all kinds of things, and that's a great part about being a politician. The Port of Bellingham is very important to Whatcom County's economy, and I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Candidate Briscoe, you have a rebuttal. 1 minute, please.
I'd like to make an additional statement. After being interviewed by a number of organizations, I received the following endorsements: the Bellingham Whatcom County Firefighters, IAFF, Whatcom Commercial Fishermen's Association, the Lummi Indian Business Council, the Teamsters Union, Laborers Union Local 292, the Whatcom Democrats, the Whatcom County Democratic Women's Club, the Whatcom Young Democrats, the Washington Conservation Voters, and my mother. Also several businesses on our waterfront, as well as many individuals that I do not have time to name. All I have mentioned and more can be found on our website. Please keep in mind there are no guarantees in life, but I will do the best job I can for Whatcom County if they decide to elect me as one of their port commissioners. Thank you all for your support and endorsements.
Candidate Jensen.
Thank you. So the League of Women Voters worked very hard to produce this document right here. It's on economic security in Whatcom County. They found that 16.6% of Whatcom County population lives below the poverty level. 42% of single parent families with female heads of households live below the poverty line. How do we solve that single mother's problem? With a better job. Ask my supporters. They're not waffling on this. They're not confused about my position. I support jobs. I work and support industrial jobs at the port. That's what we need. We had lots of jobs there. We need to get them back. My opponent is on Facebook today asking for the dredging of the Whatcom waterway to stop. The permit was applied for in 2008. 2008. It was studied extensively by the Department of Ecology. It was approved by all those departments, and now we want to stop it. I don't know how we're going to tell that lady to have jobs. We need to dredge that job so we get jobs going. That lady down there, those people who want jobs, can't wait for this project to stop now. We need to dredge that thing and get our jobs going.
Thank you. So the first question will be to candidate Jensen for his response, and you each have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you.
What do you see as the single most important issue facing the port in the next 4 years? And what specific ideas do you have for addressing it?
Their biggest port problem now is that they have environmental cleanup to do, and that's what they're doing now in the waterway, a $34 million project that will allow us to dredge that water and try to get marine jobs back. But that doesn't stop. They have more environmental problems, so the port has to make a profit. The port has to be economic engine because they have to have money to do that environmental cleanup. The Georgia Pacific site was a good site to get, but we came with environmental cleanup. The hardcourt development we'll do in stages, but the rest of it's industrial site that still needs cleanup. So port operations have to turn a profit to be able to clean up the waterfront so we can provide those jobs.
Thank you. Candidate Briscoe, your response?
I see the port's faced with monetary issues. That's the biggest issue. That's right up front. I mean, we have a lot of cleanup left to do. We don't have all the funds to do it yet. Our airport is struggling due to the dollar change. There are many issues facing the port in the next 4 years. I don't see one major issue. I see a lot of major issues, and I think whoever is there will strive to try and solve them for the folks of Whatcom County. There's many things facing us.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Briscoe, I'd like you to respond first to this one. The primary mission of the port is economic development, including job creation. Beyond that, what single factor would you rank highest as you consider planning or approving any port development project?
Our economic growth is part of the port's core responsibility. I think anything we can do within the county to increase that growth is positive, and the port should support all the businesses we have in the county, including the farming. We should the mayors all meet at certain times. I think our businesses all need to meet with the Port of Bellingham and tell us how we can help them expand their businesses. By expanding their businesses, their profits are going to increase. But when their profits increase, you're going to have better wages and more jobs.
Thank you. Candidate Jensen?
So again, you are correct, that's one of the port's main goals is economic development. You look at, let's share some stories of where they're successful. You look at the Wood Stone Oven Corporation. So they started in port property in Sumas. Port has property in Sumas as a small incubator. Then through encouragement by the port, they moved to the airport property. They're giant. They're giantly successful. Their parking lot is filled with employees. They just got purchased by Henny Penny, the largest producer of commercial equipment. But the port can help businesses grow by helping what they do. They provide that space. There's a blank canvas at the old Georgia Pacific site that's going to be interesting, and we're going to need strong economic development and hardworking commissioners to get that business back and fill those with industrial wage jobs. I kind of really do care about that single lady that needs a job.
Thank you. The next question, candidate Jensen. The city of Bellingham has required contractors and subcontractors working for the city to pay a living wage. What is your definition of a living wage? And do you think the port should adopt such a policy? Please explain your views.
Okay, so living wage is above. You can afford a house in Whatcom County. You can afford a rent. If we do it right, if jobs on the port are done right, yeah, we don't have to worry about a minimum wage. You don't have to worry about minimum because they're paying more. Georgia Pacific used to pay. My dad was a union pipe fitter at Georgia Pacific. I grew up on a union wage job. We didn't talk about wages there because the wages were high enough. My plumbers make above the wage. There are opportunities there if we do the right kind of business at the port. We don't have to have that subject because everybody's paying above it. $15 an hour is a great goal, but $15 an hour isn't one. I don't see anybody in the audience going to wake up and say, I want to live on $15 an hour. It doesn't happen. So if we do it right, we don't have to have this subject. We're paying enough to have that done.
Could you repeat
Candidate
the question?
Briscoe? Yes. The city of Bellingham has required contractors and subcontractors working for the city to pay a living wage. What is your definition of a living wage, and do you think the port should adopt such a policy?
As Mr. Jensen, I grew up in a union household myself. My father worked at the Port of Bellingham in the wintertime labeling canned salmon. As far as adopting wages, I think we need to quit worrying about adopting things like that and maybe get to the root of the problem, which is our economic growth within the county, and the port needs to build that. If, as Mr. Jensen states, if everything is healthy and our economy is growing, our wages are going to be such that people could support their families. One problem we have is I have with the waterfront redevelopment is if we want to do a lot of urban development down there and not commercial development in a lot of those places, some things haven't been decided. We're not going to be able to support that, and we're not going to grow very well to get those living wage jobs we need to support that.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Briscoe, what in your opinion is the role of the Port Commission when it comes to commerce on port-owned property?
When it comes to what?
Commerce.
Okay. Commerce on port property. The role of the commission would be to, well, I lost the words for the moment there. Most of our commerce is, boy, I'm having trouble with this question, unfortunately. I guess I don't have an answer for that one because I'm...
It's okay. Do you have an answer, Candidate Jensen?
Yeah, I do. And it is going to be a tough thing for a commissioner is what kind of commerce. Let's talk about Mr. Jay Bornstein. You know, great, successful family, been here for a long time. But if we look at his property and you look at it as a real estate investor, and you had a condo developer and came and said, I can pay you more, the port, to build condos there, I'm a commissioner that's going to say, no, we need a mixture of that. And so you have to look at is I think the port's there to protect commerce and to urge commerce, but we really want to preserve some of our businesses. Could the land be more valuable as a condo? Yeah, but is that what we need? No, we don't need to lose a Bornstein fish. We need to encourage the Bornstein fish because he employs a lot of people, hopefully above our $15 an hour limit. And so that's the thing is you want to balance in port properties of maritime industries that pay well, and then industry. The port has to make a profit, but we have to encourage businesses that we want to keep.
Okay, thank you. So, Candidate Jensen, Are there improvements or development projects on port-owned properties outside of the Bellingham waterfront area that you would advocate for? And give your reasons for that.
So repeat the question again, please.
Sure. Are there improvements or development projects on port-owned properties that are outside of the waterfront area?
Oh, sure. So the example is, they just talked about with Woodstone pizza ovens. That's an incubator, so you have land there, you get a business started, and then maybe they'll move on to something else. The port owns, the Blaine Harbor needs work. I mean, it's kind of went in an economic downturn. The airport needs improvement in there. They have space there. I used to be the sales manager of Sound Beverage, who's a port tenant, and so the port owns the dirt, Sound Beverage owns the building, and we did well there. We expanded there. When I went to first work for Sound Beverage, we were 12 employees. When I left, we had 64 employees. So that's where the port can enhance and help and grow bigger. They still have available land, so that's a good thing.
Okay. Candidate Briscoe?
Repeat that question,
Sure.
please.
Are there improvements or development projects on port-owned properties outside of the Bellingham waterfront area that you would advocate for? And give your reasons, please.
We have the Blaine district needs much improvement. That's slated to start happening. That's kind of already in the board. That's not a vision. That's supposed to take place soon. I believe at the airport there's been discussions about more hangars at some point in time there. I think we should be looking as commissioners at developing everything we can on any of the port properties to increase our businesses that support our economy here.
Thank you. The next question, Candidate Briscoe. Do current declines in airport revenues reflect a momentary market shift, or do they have lessons for future airport development? And please explain your reasons.
Well, hindsight's always 20/20. We're going to learn something from this, I'm sure, and try and figure out how to help avoid it in the future. Whatever the dollar does is basically out of airport management's hands, and I believe it's short term. We've had some issues with the airlines removing air flights and sending them to other areas in the States to compete with other airlines, and I believe one of those flights has come back, and I believe Alaska has said that other flights will return. So I think over time we're going to get our flights back, and hopefully the dollar will change, and we'll see the monetary gains at the airport that we saw before. So I believe that's short term.
Okay. Candidate Jensen?
So the airport revenue was kind of going down. They lost flights even before the Canadian economic downturn. Delta Airlines has tried to make inroads into SeaTac. Always before, that was the home of Alaska Airlines, and they dominated. So Delta has shifted that. Alaska has shifted to fight Delta, so they pulled flights from Bellingham. So that happened. Then the economic downturn came in Canada, so we lost that. So the airport is operating a negative. There's no secret about that. Now, here's what a real estate agent would tell you, is it's a lot easier to resell your house when you have a new kitchen, a new bathroom, and a new living room. Well, that's what the port has. They have a new kitchen, a new bathroom, and a new living room. Now, their present port director just got hired by SeaTac, the fastest growing airline in the United States. SeaTac, fastest growing airport. So we hope there's some spillover. The new airport director will have to have some marketing experience, and I think we have a good kitchen to sell.
Okay, Candidate Jensen. The mission of the port includes meeting the essential transportation needs of the region. Does the port have a role in mitigating impacts of increasing rail traffic throughout the county, especially within its cities?
Yes, they do. In fact, because the railroad goes right through port property. The design is to move that closer to the bluff. That financing still has to go. If rail traffic, great example, on the dredging. There wasn't enough room on our rail to take the dredging towings by rail, because the railroad said, we don't have enough space. So now it has to be barged, and then it's trucked to Eastern Washington. So that affects the port a big time. So rail traffic is going to be a problem where it's located I guess it was real nice to put it right next to the water a long time ago, but it's not now.
Candidate Briscoe.
Yes, trains are a problem. I live about 50, 60 feet above a train track, so increased rail traffic is an issue, and the port will have to do, I'm sure, certain things in certain areas about that. For all the money that's been spent on whether we have that increased traffic, arguments for the traffic and not for the traffic due to the coal situation, we probably could have built overpasses and underpasses all along the way to mitigate that. So it's something that's going to have to be done as we go along. It's pretty hard to plan ahead for something that you really don't know what's going to happen yet. So to tell you, yeah, we know what we're going to do, that would not be quite true.
Okay, but now I'm going to ask you a question about planning ahead for something that we don't know is going to happen or when. Do you think the port should take steps to ensure preparedness in the event of major earthquake or other catastrophic event?
Everyone should always take steps to prepare for a disaster. It's the natural thing to do. How you do that is the question, and to what level you do that. Common sense would tell you that when Mother Nature gets violent, I don't think there's anything man can build to withstand it. I've seen some pretty scary times in the oceans, and there was nothing you could do to prepare for that. So I think we would do the best we could to prepare for something like that, and that's all you can do. That is really all you can do, is be as prepared as you can possibly be, and I would assume as a commissioner that's what we do.
Thank you. Candidate Jensen.
As a plumbing company owner, I served under Christian Gregoire on the Governor's Advisory Board of Plumbers. And when we first had the guy come in to say, look, you're going to have to start strapping down water heaters, and I could charge you people more money for that, because it's not a question of we're going to have an earthquake. It's not a question. We're going to have an earthquake. It's when. And so, you know, building code has evolved. Every new building at the port is better built for earthquakes. That still doesn't mean we can't be prepared. There's some older buildings down there. It'll be a very essential part in terms of the Georgia Pacific site, because that's all built on fill. That was filled in. So the liquefaction, those building permits, that's going to be an expensive place to build in, and the Irish developer will surely find that out, and anyone else will do it. So you have to be prepared. Our code is steadily increased. We're going to have earthquakes someday, folks.
Okay, Candidate Jensen. What, if any, changes or improvements would you suggest in the operation of the port or commission? What, if any, changes or improvements would you suggest in the operation of the port commissioners?
Oh, great. Thank you. A good question. First one is, I don't believe that should be 3 commissioners. I think it should extend to 5 at the very least. I've worked in Ferndale. That's difficult. It's good for the public in the fact that port commissioners can't talk to each other outside the area. They have to do all their talking in session. They cannot have conversation in the coffee shop because it would be violating the laws. That's probably a good thing that everybody's in public, but I've learned with 7 council members, it's good that they get together and discuss things outside the chambers and come to some agreements. And 5 people, I think you got a better chance of sharing ideas, where you look, 3 commissioners, that's a tough one. You know, you have 2-1 votes or something. I'm sure the one person feels pretty bad. So I would recommend going to 5. I think it would do it. And I think we need to increase customer involvement. I think their afternoon meetings are not very beneficial either.
Thank you. Candidate Briscoe?
I would have to agree with Mr. Jensen on several things there. Transparency. We need to improve our transparency with the folks of Whatcom County that actually own the Port of Bellingham. That's something I keep hearing over and over when people talk to me, is the transparency. 5 commissioners, I do agree, would be better than 3 for several reasons. And the ability to ease or make easier for the folks to attend the public hearings that the port has, and the times that the commission meets. There's been some disapproval of that, and I would like to change those times to what the folks feel of Whatcom County that they need to attend those meetings.
Candidate Briscoe, what, other than airport and marina, should be a repayment to the public for their investment in their port through their taxes?
I believe that we need to focus more on the whole county than just the waterfront and the airport. Maybe by gathering with our businesses of Whatcom County on that level, a group meetings with them or individual meetings, and get their ideas on how we can help them expand all the business in the county. Maybe their ideas on how what types of businesses they would like to have us as the port help them attract to the county as a support business to their business.
Okay. Thank you. Candidate Jensen?
First of all, some of you may not realize the port hasn't raised your property taxes for several years, so they should get credit for that. The port's stated mission is economic development. So I think ports were formed because it would be hard for the public to have an airport or have a marina. And so those are the first few things where, we have to recognize that we're here to help you and we're an important part of the economic development. Sometimes you may need to fly out of a plane. Sometimes you may need to go in a boat. And so those are those core issues where everything, the port was formed to take over an operation that the public couldn't do by themselves. And so that's their main objective. To do that, to follow those things, they have to have economic development. And I still want to get jobs for that single mom.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Jensen, what do you think is the appropriate amount of public access to the waterfront? Do you believe that the current Georgia Pacific Waterfront Development Plan achieves this? And why or why not?
It is the people's port, and I think the port and the city of Bellingham have done a great job. If you look at the master plan, the public does have access to that. The port just built a new trail. It's kind of silly that you can't legally walk all the way around the ASB pond. Now you walk over the chain, but at least there's a trail there. And I think that does it, is the public wants to see that. I really totally believe that you look at other communities, we can have a working port with access to public, and it's kind of nice. You can sit there and watch a fisherman do his nets. You can walk down, and we all, I guess we're human beings. We're made up of a large percentage of water, so we have a connection to the water, so you should have the ability to connect to that water anytime you want.
Candidate Briscoe?
Yes. I believe the public access is important. It not only educates the folks on what's going on the waterfront they own, if they're people from Whatcom County that are down there. It helps to understand the businesses we have, whether it's fishing or other marine business, related businesses that are there that people can walk around and enjoy. It's important for people to be able to access the properties they own, and also people that come from out of town to be able to access the property that Whatcom County owns to see what we do here.
Thank you. Candidate Briscoe, first. What values and goals should guide the setting of lease rates and terms for waterfront port property in particular and all port property in general?
Can you give that to me again?
Yes. What values and goals should guide the setting of lease rates and terms for waterfront port property in particular and all property?
Well, this is something I've had issues with for a long time is we live in Bellingham. We don't live in a large city, say as Seattle or Vancouver. Our population here is a lot less to draw from. So our folks on the waterfront don't have as many people to draw from to increase their business. Our rates and our leases need to be tied to how big our city is and what the economy is. And term leases, if you want a business to stay on the waterfront for a long time, let's say, I think they need an option of more than just one 10-year lease with an option after 10. I think you need to have step options available for different businesses. It's a pretty tough question to answer in a short amount of time, but I believe that we need to examine different rates and so on and so forth for different businesses.
Thank you. Candidate Jensen?
So any commercial real estate agent will tell you that does leasing that it has to be a balance. Some tenants pay more than some other tenants. Some tenants pay less. Some tenants you give a long-term lease because they're a long-term customer. You want to keep them. Some are new. In the port, it's going to have to be a balance because we need a balance of it can't be all condos, can't be all coffee shops. It's going to be a combination of maybe a couple coffee shops. Some condos are coming down there, but we still, the reason why people want to move to the port and be there and be in the water because they like the atmosphere there. They like the fishermen, they like the industrial, like the sounds. And, you know, hopefully you'd have covenants against that. We have covenants in Ferndale where if you live next to a farm, you can't complain about the smell.
Okay. Well, I have one more question for you. This is the last question before your closing statement. As a commissioner, what level of importance would you give protecting the environment in relation to other factors like providing employment? Why do you believe that this is an appropriate priority? Candidate Jensen.
So let's talk about that. So you should know about, I don't like to hide from issues, the Arctic Challenger. Arctic Challenger, you know, there was a situation where they're going to doorbell for my opponent, and he said he was against the Arctic Challenger. And then he changed his mind at the Central Line and said he was for the Arctic Challenger. I don't know why we protested the Arctic Challenger. If you don't like high school football, you wouldn't come to me and say, Gary, I don't like high school football, so don't have the ambulance park there. We don't ever want to use the ambulance at a high school football game, but the ambulance is there. The Arctic Challenger is there for safety. Now the issue's gone away. We won't have to worry about it. But you know, I think you have to look at environmental things and look at that and go, well, that was a safety boat in Alaska. And so I would have voted for them to come back.
Candidate Briscoe.
Would you repeat the question? I'm
Yes.
confused
As a
there.
commissioner, what level of importance would you give protecting the environment in relation to the other factors like providing employment?
Well, I think in all things you have to find a balance where both work together. For instance, now they're dredging in our waterway down here, and I have an issue with that. We have salmon returning to a hatchery there. We have folks working in the hatchery there. Now, we've got 17 agencies that have said it's okay for those folks to dredge this time of the year. I don't agree with that. As a port commissioner, I would have scrutinized their timing very, very hard and wanted answers to why we're dredging that waterway when our salmon are returning to our hatchery and our smolt are going out. I have issues with that. Those are the types of things that I would have caught right away as a commissioner at that level and said, well, what about the folks over here? As far as industry and environmental pollution together, you can always find a happy medium, but you should always err on the side of the environment if possible.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's time for your closing statements, and Candidate Briscoe, I would like you to give yours first.
Didn't I start first? Shouldn't I be?
You started first, and you also
Finish first?
end
Oh,
first.
okay, I'm sorry. I thought
He
I misunderstood what you told me.
You got to go
Magic
first.
dice.
And he gets to end first.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Yeah.
To the folks attending and those at home, the limited amount of time allowed during this forum may have left folks with unanswered questions. If so, please contact me at your convenience. I would like to answer questions to your satisfaction. Our website, briscoeforport.com, has phone and email information, so you may contact me. Being a port commissioner is a serious and demanding job. I fully understand the commitment required of the commission's seat. More transparency is needed between the Port of Bellingham and its owners, the people of Whatcom County. The Port of Bellingham is the economic engine of the county. It needs to be strong and stable. I would like to help ensure the port takes its responsibilities seriously. The port should lead the charge on economic development that will result in family wage jobs. A vote for Bobby is a vote for Whatcom County. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Jensen, closing statement.
Thanks for all of you for taking the time to learn more about the candidates on this year's ballots. My campaign is supported by a broad cross-section of community leaders, including retiring Port Commissioner Jim Jorgensen, who I hope to replace, County Council members Rudbound and Pre-Kremen, the mayors of Linden, Blaine, Everson, Nooksack, and Sumas, former Port Executive Charlie Sheldon, the Northwest Central Labor Council, the Plumbers and Pipefitters Union, Whatcom Republican Party, and like Bobby, my mom and dad endorsed me, and my dog likes me if I bribe him with a bone. These endorsements are not so much about my positions, but they're about my experience, my skills, and my ability to best serve the public. I've been serving the public for a long time. This is not my first time. I've been a lifetime volunteer to the public. This is not my first time, and hopefully it will be not my last time. I'd ask you to vote for Port of the Bellingham. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking Bobby Briscoe and Gary Jensen for running for public office. And this is Jill Bernstein, who will be our moderator for the next segment of our program. Sorry, I ran over.
Thank you, Annette. The next portion of our forum will cover the jail sales and use tax measure, proposition number 2015-1, that will be voted on by all Whatcom County voters. This proposition would impose a sales and use tax. We're going to hopefully have our speakers finding their way forward. We're going to take just a second for everybody to get themselves organized here. Take your time.
I got fancy new seats up here since I was on the planning commission. This is nice.
This proposition, as I was saying, would impose a sales and use tax of 0.2% or 20 cents for every $100 for constructing and operating jail facilities for inmates charged or convicted of misdemeanor and felony acts, and for other public safety purposes. Half of this tax, or 10 cents for every $100, would expire upon repayment of bonds issued to finance the facilities no later than 30 years after issuance. If proposition number 1 passes, the county will build a replacement jail on LaBounty Road in Ferndale, demolish the existing Prospect Street Jail, and construct facilities for inmate transfer at the county courthouse. The proposition before county voters would add sales and use tax for construction and operation of jail facilities, adult corrections programs, including inmate mental health programs, and for other public safety purposes as authorized by state law. You should know that the League of Women Voters has not taken a position on this issue. Tonight, we have 2 speakers that have agreed to present the pro and con sides to this issue. Speaking in favor of the measure is Wendy Jones, Chief of the Corrections Bureau for the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. In opposition is Doug Starcher, co-author of the argument against in the 2015 voters pamphlet and a property manager. The same ground rules apply to this part of our forum, except that the timing is a little bit different. Remember, the yellow sign signals 15 seconds, and the red stop sign means stop talking. The speakers were asked to begin by responding to the following question in their opening statements. The question being, what is the most compelling argument for why or why shouldn't voters support this new tax? The speakers will have 3-minute opening statements and 1.5-minute rebuttals. Since Ms. Jones won the dice toss and chose to open second, we will start with Mr. Starcher. Good evening.
Thank you.
And would you please tell us why or why the voters shouldn't support this new tax?
Well, 2 things. First, I'm not a member, nor have I ever been a member of any political party or committee or group. I'm a citizen. I've followed the jail issue most of my adult life. There are a number of problems starting off with the sales tax. Number 1, we already have a sales tax to build a jail. We passed that in 2004. Sales taxes are regressive. They hurt the people that can afford to pay them the most. They hurt the people that can afford to pay them the least. So we already have a number of financing methods available to our county council that they could vote on right away. We have real estate excise tax that they can increase. They have bank taxing capacity. One of the things the county council's been very proud of for the last 15 years, maybe 17, is that they haven't taken their 1% tax increase that they have allowed to them. So I think that the county council should take the responsibility for funding this new jail. I'd also like to hear some discussion about how our nearly 30-year-old jail has become such a wreck. I remember when it was new. Samantha Wolfell from the Bellingham Herald, July 6, 2015, published a great story that covers where the tax money from the 2004 tax has gone. I supported the new interim or minimum security facility when I was a member of the Bellingham Planning Commission and sat here. That had a $10 million price tag. $2.4 million of our accrued sales tax money went to pay for that. One of the problems with using sales tax financing is it's volatile. When the Canadian dollar goes down, sales tax revenues go down. When the economy goes in the tank, sales tax revenue goes down. The city of Bellingham is still recovering from the loss of sales tax revenue. So it's volatile, and we have predictable taxing methodologies that are in place right now. That's enough.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody taking their time to come, or for those of you who may be watching on TV, not watching some of the commercial TV programs and watching us instead. I come from an interesting perspective because I'm both the manager and administrator of the county jail and I'm a citizen of Bellingham. And one of the things I spent a lot of time thinking about this opening opportunity, and I realized it comes down to the reason that you should support this is because this is the right time and the right way of doing it. The county jail is a community problem, and the interesting thing to me is that almost everyone I've heard speak on either side of this issue agrees. I've gone to countless numbers of public meetings here in the city of Bellingham, out in Ferndale when we were working on getting the LaBounty Road property, listening to the county council, and inevitably people start out their sentence with, everyone knows we need a new jail. Then we get a comma and a but. My objective tonight is to get rid of the comma and the but, and instead focus on a simple declarative sentence. We need a county jail. We need one to replace the one downtown because it is literally falling down around our ears, and the community seems to understand that. What we've got right now is an opportunity to fix a problem that's been going on for at least 20 years. I started when this jail first opened. Actually, I started a little before that. And I've seen it deteriorate a little bit and a lot at any given point in time. We've poured millions of dollars trying to keep it functional because we keep kicking the can down the road as far as fixing it. People get kind of scared. Jails are weird, unusual, and complicated things, and it's difficult to understand it. The 0.2% sales tax is a tax, and people don't like to pay those either. But this is a little bit of money spread out over a lot of people. One of the suggestions that we've heard is, well, you should be doing a property tax instead. There are a couple reasons why the county didn't choose to fund it that way. One is that they can generate more money to pay the bond to build the jail with sales tax than you can with property tax. The other issue I occasionally hear is that it negatively impacts folks who can afford it the least, and I understand that. I used to be one of those folks, especially when I was younger. But I also know that if you raise property tax, I know of no landlord in this community who is going to say, fine, I'll absorb that hit and not affect that single mother that the candidate Mr. Jensen was talking about a little while ago. Those sales tax get passed on. What I'd ask you to remember is what the county is asking for is basically on a $1,000 purchase is $2. If we can spread this cost over a lot of people, it reduces any one person's impact. Thank you.
Mr. Starcher, you have an opportunity now to spend a minute and a half to rebut what Ms. Jones just said.
Well, one of the other problems with using this 0.2 inside the city limits of Bellingham is it will remove the opportunity for the city of Bellingham, if they opt to take that money and use it to fund programs that we need to keep people out of jail. We have substance abuse, and mental health has taken up a tremendous amount of time, energy, and money at the jail. If we take that sales tax money inside the city of Bellingham and develop treatment alternatives programs, then we can keep people out of jail. If we are keeping people out of jail, we still need a jail. I don't disagree with that. But we would need a smaller jail. And we already know what happens when we do what we've always done. So it's time to take a different approach. And this is the time, and this is the method. So the first thing we have to do is vote down this tax and begin replanning for a smaller jail and restorative programs in our community that will keep people out of jail.
Thank you. And Ms. Jones?
Something a lot of people don't recognize is that the county basically spends almost $15 million a year on health and human services, targeting populations, veterans, people with mental illness, people with chemical dependency and substance abuse issues currently. The jail, if you take out the mental health and behavioral health programs that we run in the jail, runs net cost to the community about $10 million. So currently, right now, the county is spending more than they're spending on the jail to provide health and human services. The county executive has been very public about the fact he's willing to explore other options that may be out there, and the council and the county executive have formed a task force that's focusing on that right now. There is nothing that's going to prevent anyone from being able to identify other ways of doing things. One of the things that also seems to have gotten sidetracked a little bit is with this new sales tax, the county isn't getting all of it. There's a very complicated formula that would take longer than a minute and a half to explain, but basically the city of Bellingham is able to retain funds to use in any way they want. They can use it needs to be public safety. That can be programs that would help potentially drain off some of the population. It can be to buy new law enforcement officers. As long as it relates to public safety, it's fine. I'm sure there are going to be other questions, so I'll be able to answer this a little bit more carefully and completely, but thank you.
Thank you both. The first question, we'll start with Mr. Starcher. And the question is, the mayor and council of Bellingham agree that a new jail is needed, but they have challenged the details of the facilities and use agreement between the county and its 7 cities. It spells out, among other things, the amount of sales tax revenue each city would remit to the county if this issue is approved. As of now, negotiations continue. From your perspective, what effect, if any, should participation of the city of Bellingham have on a voter's decision about this issue?
Wow. The mayor and the executive need to continue to meet. There isn't any question about that. But fundamentally, the problem is, in my experience and my observation, is developing the alternatives that will keep people out of jail has to happen before or contemporaneously with the design and proposal of the jail. Otherwise, we will build, this jail planning process started off with a 1,200-bed jail, then it was a 1,000-bed jail, then it was an 800-bed jail. Now it's a 600 or 500-bed jail. Our experience shows that we will keep whatever size jail we build full. That's what we do, and then we keep it over full. We need to be developing programs that will keep people out of jail. And so part of this agreement that the mayor's negotiating with the executive.
Ms. Jones.
He's very good. Couple of different things. One is a lot of this has been based on the idea that immediately after instituting some alternative programs, we won't need a jail that's as large as the county is proposing. I've done a fair amount of research, and we see the results of that in the county jail. One of the best gold standard programs is one that's being run out of Austin, Texas, down in Bexar County. And it's a terrific program, and it's diverted a lot of people from involvement with law enforcement. There was an article earlier this year by the sheriff who's responsible for the Bexar County Jail, talking about how the jail population has continued to grow and they have more people with mental illness in the facility than they've ever had before, and that they're overcrowded and they're going to have to put more deputies on and overtime in order to take care of it. If they did not have the alternative programs, that would have been much worse than it is right now, and that's one of the most powerful things alternatives can do. But as far as depending on them to solve a problem of a jail population, doesn't pan out when you look at what's been happening in this country for the past 10 years.
Okay, I'd like to thank both of you for that information, but I'm going to try to ask the same question again. From your perspective, and we'll start with you this time, Ms. Jones, from your perspective, what effect, if any, should participation of the City of Bellingham have on a voter's decision about this issue?
I don't think it should have any. I think that the county and the city should continue to work together because from a practical point of view, it only makes sense that they work together and come up with an agreement that neither one of them are completely happy with, but both of them can live with. But the other part of that is the sales tax will hopefully pass. That will generate sales tax funds to help correct this problem. And the city of Bellingham has said, well, we want to do all these wonderful things. If the sales tax passes, it basically means the city of Bellingham will be able to keep the revenue that it generates. And they can do with it whatever they want that revolves around public safety. So on one level, it's a win-win win-win solution. If they want to build lots of different alternatives or build their own jail, they're entitled to do that. That sales tax money would benefit everyone in the larger community.
Mr. Starcher.
So the effect on whether people should vote for or against this in relationship to the negotiations between the mayor and the executive. I don't think whether you vote for or against this has anything to do with the negotiations between the mayor and the executive. I don't see a link.
Okay, Mr. Starcher, the next question will start with you. In 2004, voters approved a one-tenth of
1%.
Thank you, tax for jail facilities by a wide majority. To date, over $30 million has been collected. Should voters be satisfied that this money has been used as they presumed it would be?
Well, I actually supported that because in 2004 I agreed we needed a new jail. In fact, Wendy took me on a tour of the jail right about that time. Let's look at the history. That tax was projected to collect $37 million to date. It actually collected $31 million. So they're volatile and they're not predictable. What's the money been spent on? Of the jail alternative, $2.4 million was spent on that facility. $16.9 million of the tax money that we voted ourselves to put aside to build a jail was actually used operating the new jail alternatives program. $16 million. Only $2.8 million has gone into the planning and acquisition of the site of the current jail. Ding.
Ms. Jones?
Ding.
He was reaching for it.
Okay. Talking about the one-tenth money that came in, Dawn's right. A lot of it went in for the construction of the work center, and then another chunk of it went to staff the work center, including the jail alternative programs that we're running out of it. Another chunk of it went into the downtown jail because basically we had an electronic system that was failing. And it took about $3 million to try and fix it. As of today, that still is not working correctly, and there are almost as many issues as there were before. We've also had major failures of the plumbing, and there was some other stuff that needed to happen over at the work center. The other thing that complicated it, as all of you are aware of, is that the county had built that premise on a certain growth in the sales tax revenue, and with the recession that failed. The other big factor that came into that is in order to, we paid back basically, we gave the city's back about $6 million to help pay for their jail costs. Thank you.
Ms. Jones, we'll start with you. What are the advantages or disadvantages of using a sales tax to fund construction of a new jail?
The disadvantage is clearly exactly what Dawn has said. It's a little bit volatile. It goes up when people are spending a lot of money, and it goes down when they don't. The interesting thing, there was an article in the Herald that talked about, although the Canadian border traffic and expenditures has dropped, the local community has picked that up, so sales tax revenues are actually increased. The benefit is that a sales tax is a little bit of money spread out over a lot of people. We need to remember this is a community problem. It's not Bellingham problem, it's not Ferndale's problem, it's not Blaine's, it's everyone. That includes unincorporated Whatcom County, Paradise, whatever. The other thing that happens with the sales tax is everybody who spends money in Whatcom County pays for it. So that includes not only the citizens who live there, it includes folks who are visitors, it includes our friends to the north, and it includes the inmates that are buying commissary in the jail. So if you take a little bit of money spread over a lot of people, you get enough money to do what we need to do.
Mr. Starcher.
Well, I've already spoke to the advantages and disadvantages, and I think we agree on them. Now it's just a matter of principle. And we have other methods that we could use to finance this, and I think it's the responsibility of the electeds to step up and do it. Real estate taxes is a little bit of money spread out over a lot of people. Real estate excise tax applies to real estate transactions. It's a little bit of money spread out over a lot of transactions. So there are other ways to do it, but the critical component to this as we move forward is we need to build a smaller jail, and we need to, at the same time, have the programs in place to divert people from jail.
So starting with you, Mr. Starcher, what do you believe would be the consequences, if any, of a delay in implementing this specific plan to replace the existing jail?
Well, I want to use that to ask some questions, because Wendy went to work at that jail when it was brand new. We hear it's falling apart. I live in a 110-year-old wooden house, and it's doing fine. What the hell happened? We need honest, legitimate answers to how we got to where we are today, because we're being asked once again to do the same thing. I remember when the jail opened, it was state of the art. It was the newest, brightest penny in the correctional world. And they talk about expanding capacity at the jail by turning closets into jail cells. Well, I remember when the jail opened, it was 1 bed per cell. The first thing that happened that I remember was putting a 2nd bed in each cell. So the consequences we're going to hear about are disastrous events at the jail. How did we get to where that's possible?
Ms. Jones?
Consequences are actually pretty clear because we can base it on what's already happened. The jail is overcrowded. It has been overcrowded since 3 years after we opened. Big part of that had nothing to do with all of a sudden an influx of criminal people in Whatcom County. A lot of it had to do with changes in state legislature and the laws that passed down and some requirements that people who were going to move on in the criminal justice system stays here. The state legislature oftentimes will pass laws to transfer expenditures from the state to the local community. That's what's happened here. We're cramming a jail that was meant for 148 with, as of just before I came over here, main jail was 273 people. Then we had whatever the difference would be at the work center. So we've done it overcrowded with some people, unlike Dawn, who don't really care much about taking care of the building. What we've seen for the past 20 years is going to continue, and it's going to get worse. We need an outlet. Everybody seems to agree. I asked you to go with it.
So if this proposal is defeated, what will happen to jail operations? Starting with you, Ms. Jones.
The sheriff has been very, very clear that he cannot allow an unsafe, unhealthy, and falling apart jail to continue under the pressure that it has right now. He's in the middle of planning what we're calling Plan B. Hopefully, we won't have to institute it in a very draconian manner. It basically necessitates in pulling the population of the downtown jail down. Now, that can mean and probably will mean a whole variety of things. The first thing that's going to impact is going to limit some access to the downtown jail. We're going to work at alternatives, which may involve hardening the architecture out at the work center and having to look at putting potentially some higher security offenders out there. It's going to be looking at even more robust use of the programs we've got right now. But basically what the bottom line is, it's going to limit access to the facility itself. We're trying to figure out exactly how we're going to manage that and keep the community safe.
Mr. Starcher?
Well, obviously, I can't say, but I can ask more questions. And one of the things that would be nice is if we had current, contemporary information about who's in jail and why. It's my understanding that an awful lot of folks are sitting in jail right now, non-violent offenders who are sitting in jail because they can't pay their bail to await trial. Does it make any sense if we are keeping them in jail because they can't make bail or a bond to await a trial for non-violent, non-criminal action? I have some of the breakdowns as of September 21st in terms of how many are housed where, and that had 247 at the main jail and 188 at the work center and 12 on electronic home detention. It's my understanding that the work center can house up to 150 people. So I'm curious whether there are any of these nonviolent offenders who are in the Whatcom County Jail that could be moved to the detention center.
Ms. Jones?
I'm not sure where the figure of 188 beds or 188 people over at the work center came from. We've never held that many
No,
because I don't
said
have enough beds.
88.
88, that makes more sense. Okay. As far as, I've completely lost. Jill, can you, I wrote a note and rather than listening, can you restate the question?
I can try.
I'm sorry. Oh, good, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, what are the consequences if it doesn't pass?
Yes,
that's
thank you.
right.
And that is where we were. Thank you
Okay.
so much. Can you tell us about the consequences if there is a no vote?
If it seems confusing, we just did answer that.
Okay.
And this
So
is
let me
the
say,
follow-up.
the problem is mine, and I apologize, and we'll start fresh. How about that? So, Ms. Jones, if the sales tax is approved, what would be the effect on budgets for public safety and other needs of the county and participating cities?
Obviously, there are going to be some expenditure increases, and that's one of the reasons that the sales tax is the option that the county selected to move forward. Because if you look at the proposal, it will pay for not only all the planning, construction of the new jail, it will help pay for the operations of the facility, which will help create new money to help take care of the larger facility, the slightly larger staffing that we're going to need. It's also going to allow the cities to be able to retain some of that sales tax money to help pay for those offenders who are in custody in the new facility. So that's going to lower the overall impact to their general fund monies. Hopefully, it'll do the same thing for the county jail, or for the county also. Excuse me. We'll leave it at that.
Mr. Starcher?
Could I have the question again?
You bet, and this time I'm on top of it. If the sales tax is approved, what would be the effect on budgets for public safety and other needs of the county and participating cities?
I got nothing.
Well, let's start with a fresh question then for you. Even if this tax measure passes, construction of the new jail will take approximately 4 years. What measures should be undertaken immediately to deal with the safety, security, and health issues of the current jail?
You want me to start?
Please.
Really be much better if Wendy started, since she knows what the hell she's talking about. I think that our focus should be on who's in jail and why. We need clear and regular reporting about who's there and why, and that would give us, the voters, a better sense of urgency. We have bed space now. Wendy, when you have a chance, I would like to know about that doubling of the beds in the cells, because that's the way I remember it. If I have it wrong, I'd like to know. But we have headroom or at least we're supposed to have headroom at the minimum detention or at the work center. How many of those folks could be moved? We have 12 people on electronic home detention. Aren't there more people that should be eligible for that?
Ms. Jones.
Thank you. Some of the steps that we're going to be doing, we've basically already started. Part of the difficulty is that we have a lot of offenders at the downtown jail who simply at this point can't be housed at the work center. It is a minimum security facility. It was meant to minimum security standards. We have inmates, this is a piece of mortar that one of my inmates with his fingernails and a toothbrush managed to pry out of between the concrete walls. And he did that because he wanted to pass something to the guy who was on the other side. That doesn't speak to having those offenders over at the work center, since it's basically drywall. If they were able to do this with a toothbrush, you can only imagine what they'd do to that facility. What's been happening over the years is we've been working with the judges, we've been working with the prosecutors and the public defenders to try and get the people who needed to be in jail left there and the people who didn't let go. One of the things we did was a bail study, because we had heard the keeping a lot of nonviolent minimum security offenders. And basically when I did that, the number came out to 12 people out of the jail population.
So starting with you, Ms. Jones, driving between a remote jail and court in Bellingham will add to the operating costs for the facility. To reduce costs, why was a high-rise jail closer to the courthouse not chosen?
It was not chosen because it's much more expensive to build, and it's much more expensive to run. And that has to do a lot with having to duplicate services on each tier of that jail. We've got to have personnel to watch the offenders that are housed there. One of the things that we have looked at are some ways to cut down the impact of that travel time. And a big one actually has already started at the downtown jail. As of about 4 months ago, Superior Court for the state, for Whatcom County, has changed all of their first appearances to video only. So the judge and the prosecutor sits in one place, and the defendant and the defense attorney is another. It's been working out really, really well. More and more jails are moving that way because it makes moot the point of having to move a lot of offenders from point A to point B. So that should help mitigate that. One of the things to remember is that for those of us who live in Bellingham, our world is Bellingham-centric, but the vast majority of the community lives outside of the city limits.
Mr. Starcher?
I don't know that it's a vast majority that lives outside the city limits, but yeah, there are more people in the unincorporated area. Driving people back and forth to jail or to court from jail is going to be expensive. And one of the things I hear about a multi-story jail is the most dangerous place is the elevator. Well, I think one of the dangerous places might be driving around in vans full of prisoners, moving them from the jail to the courthouse. Or if we look a little deeper into the preliminary jail plans, we find that it's a sheriff's office, that it's got courtrooms, or at least some sort of hearing facilities. And so we're thinking in terms of going out there and building a jail. And it's my understanding that it's a good deal more than that.
So, Mr. Starcher, this question will start with you. According to the Whatcom County financial reports, jail operational costs have more than doubled in the last 13 years. To what factors do you attribute the increase, and are there ways to reduce costs or at least the rate of increase?
Well, one of the things, I'm assuming that that is from the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for Whatcom County. And this is a report that is prepared and published by the Whatcom County Administrative Services Department in September of 2014. I cannot tell you why the costs have spiraled up at such a steep rate, but one of the things that I can tell you is from this reporting, the number of people in jail is much lower and flatter than we've been led to believe in the audited report. So we have in 2008, Well, let's start in 2004, 246 people, 2005, 263, 2006, 290, 2007, 262. So 2008, 277, 2009, 283, 2010, 275, 2011, 261. Sorry. But the numbers are in the
No,
report,
the bell
and they're
has
pretty
run.
flat.
Ms. Jones?
I may be able to clarify the point Don had said, in that he's giving you the numbers from the main downtown jail. He's not giving you from the total number of inmates that are incarcerated. Our average daily population in 2014 was 403. So obviously, we've increased, and the biggest reason for the large leap in costs for the jail was related to the work center. We went from a population of about 260 to a population in the low 400s, literally within a 3-week period of time. So that drove an additional 22 staff members. It was all the costs related with keeping the offenders, plus all of the clothing and the heat and all of the things that were associated with the work center. The other big driver behind the increase in costs has been medical care. There are increasing numbers of court decisions that are coming down that are saying this is the level of required medical care you need to provide. And any of you who pay health insurance know that those costs keep going up.
Ms. Jones, what programs are currently in place that have reduced the population of the jail? How successful have they been? And are there other programs that we should look forward to implementing to help reduce the population of our jail?
Can I ask one point of clarification before my clock stops? Is this the ones that are internal to the jail, or is this the ones countywide?
Well, I would ask you to speak to the jail programs, if you would, please.
Primarily, the jail programs that we have that are alternative programs are our electronic home monitoring and detention, work release, and work crews. Those are the ones that directly siphon offenders off. Electronic home detention is the largest one. The one we would like to see about innovating and starting with the coming of the new jail would be a day reporting system, because that way offenders could live in the community, come in, report for the day, and then leave. We wouldn't have to worry about finding a bed for them. Now, there are other programs that are internal to the jail that are not diversion programs necessarily, but they are set up to try and help people when they get out of custody to not return to the jail. Probably the two most important are, because of the health department, we have 2 full-time mental health professionals, and we have a reentry specialist whose sole job is to try to connect people who are leaving our jail with mental health and substance abuse problems to community providers, and that seems to be making a small difference.
Mr. Starcher.
Well, one of the things that would probably help with the medical costs at the jail would be to keep people out of jail. If people with mental health and substance abuse problems are housed in the community, their access to Medicare and Medicaid would remain. By locking them up, that transfers all the direct costs to us. So finding a better place for those people and keeping them out of jail will save us all money and be the humane thing to do for people who are ill. Don't do that. Expanding the, and I'm looking at a report from Monday, September 21st, that had 12 people on electronic home detention and 88 people at the work center. So again, Wendy, at some point, is there going to be a way where you can report to the community who's in jail and why, and by who? I mean, what's their offense, and why are they there?
Mr. Starcher, do you think that the county executive waited too long to discuss the jail issue with Mayor Linville and then pressed for a quick decision?
Yes. And as long as I have some dead air, I will also point out that we overpaid for the land, and that when we get the geotechnical analysis on it and find that it's going to cost, I've heard estimates in the $12 to $20 million more to build there because of the geotechnical conditions and the wetlands that are quite obviously on that site. I drove out there in the middle of our long, dry summer, and it's one of the rare places in Whatcom County where you could see green grass in the middle of a field that was not irrigated.
Ms. Jones?
I would say no. For one, this is not a new problem. Folks have known that we needed a jail and we needed to find a solution to the downtown jail for years. The city, the community, the mayor, the city council is aware that the county's been working on this very assiduously for the past 4 to 5 years. They knew that this was going to be coming. The county executive was able to put together a plan with the cooperation of the county council and bring it forward. That happened back in April, I believe. It may have been before that. It would be different if this was a new problem. It wasn't. The specific jail use agreement is something that can be negotiated. And I'm aware, as I'm sure many of you, that the county executive asked a number of times, please, let's sit down and negotiate this in a meaningful manner, and he wasn't able to get much traction on that. I'm hoping that that has now changed and we'll be able to work something out.
I am so disappointed that we are out of time for this evening and that we have to move forward to your closing statements, and we'll start with you, Mr. Starcher.
Vote no. I've given you all the reasons. Vote it down and start over.
Ms. Jones.
I'm going to take a few more seconds. I spoke at the beginning of this that this is a community problem and the community seems to acknowledge it. Voting no and kicking this down the line even farther than it's been is simply going to make the situation worse. This is a community that values itself on the way that it treats human beings. I don't see how anyone in good conscience can look at the circumstances at the current downtown jail and see in any way that there's a humane way of keeping the people who live there and the people who work there. It is basically an above-ground dungeon. If the Humane Society were keeping their rescue animals in the same circumstances that we're having to keep human beings, this community would be horrified. This is a reasonable, logical, minimally impactful solution to a horrible problem that we've been dealing with for a number of years. This should not continue, and I don't believe this community wants it to. This is the right time, and it is the right solution. Please vote yes.
Well, I would ask you all to please join me in thanking Ms. Jones and Mr. Starcher for being here with us tonight. And really not just being present, but also sharing their knowledge on this important issue. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Bellingham and Whatcom County, I'd like to extend a big thank you to the City of Bellingham, our co-sponsor, and to our media partner, the Bellingham Herald. You will be able to watch this the events of this evening because repeats of this and all of our forums can be viewed on BTV 10, which is Comcast Channel 10. They may also be watched online via the City of Bellingham's YouTube channel. Simply go to youtube.com and search the City of Bellingham. I'd like to remind you that the forums are the property of the League of Women Voters of Bellingham and Whatcom County and the City of Bellingham, and they may not be used in any manner without the specific written permission from both parties. We will have 2 other forums this election season. They will be held right here in the Bellingham City Council chambers. Whatcom County candidates for council and for executive will be on Tuesday, October 6th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., and the charter amendment propositions will be covered on Saturday, October 10th, from 10 a.m. until noon. I'd like to say thank you to Tanya Baumgart, our voter service chair, and also to the Forum Committee for all of their hard work. And thank you for being such an attentive audience and for asking such good questions. And your vote counts, so remember to cast it on no later than November 3rd, and encourage your family, friends, and neighbors to vote also. Again, thank you to all.